Hi class, and welcome to week 1 of Education 506, Educational Assessment. This is a fast-paced and intense course. It's also designed to teach you a lot about what you know, not everything, but a lot about what you should know about how to fairly and appropriately assess children. And at the heart of that, that means how to understand what your students know and do not know. It does us no good as teachers if all we're going to do is teach and teach and teach and teach and assume that children are learning, but not really understand if they are, what they know, how they learn, etc. So I hope this course will be helpful for you, and this lecture is designed to help you understand the structure of the course because it might be a little bit different than some of the courses that you're used to. I hope now that you've printed your syllabus. If you haven't printed it or if you don't have it available in front of you electronically, I suggest you pause this lecture and go and look at it, print it out. It's in the syllabus link on the course site. Then come back. So if we look at the first page of the syllabus, you'll see here that you have my contact information. The best way to reach me is not through phone, it's through email. And I'm usually very good at setting up or responding to email within a few hours at least. You have your course description here as well. I want to spend just a minute talking about academic integrity, something that we talk about as plagiarism. Most of the assignments in this course are put through something called Safe Assign, and that automatically checks your paper against thousands of papers out there on that have been submitted through college portals. It also checks it against internet sources. It's very good at finding plagiarism. So the penalty for plagiarism is quite severe. So I hope that you will not do that. Sometimes the hardest thing to watch is a student who inadvertently plagiarized something. So what do I mean by that? I mean, maybe you used something on the internet a few years ago in your classroom and you want to reuse it, and you forgot that you took it from the internet, and all of a sudden the paper finds, Safe Assign finds your paper and there's a big match, and then I have to communicate with you, and then you have to redo the paper, or you possibly even risk getting an F on it. So all the work in this course is supposed to be original. So what that means is you can't reuse rubrics that you've been using in your classroom. And just to be safe, you really should do it from scratch. The other thing I want to talk about plagiarism is there's such a thing as self-plagiarism. And what this means is you can't duplicate portions of papers that you've turned in for other classes. I've received papers through the years that where students have written half the paper for another course, and that's considered double dipping. It will find that. I will have to have a conversation with you about how that's inappropriate. You will have to rewrite it. So don't be tempted to go back and use the same language that you're using in papers for other classes this semester. We'll talk about that a little bit more when we touch on the field work. If you have a disability, then you need to register it with the Office of Accessibility. The contact information is here. And then let me know. They give you a form to send to professors. So for example, if you get time and a half on assignments or whatever it is. Counseling service contact information is here as well. I want to talk for a minute about technical difficulties. Something that's very difficult for students who are taking online classes first time is figuring out the interactions. How do you submit papers? How do you respond to discussion boards? So first of all, I want to encourage you not to put those things out off until the last minute. I'm not going to be waiting at my computer at 11:30 at night, half hour before an assignment is due, for your desperate course message or email that says I need help. I'll probably be asleep. So what you want to do is to not submit that assignment at 11:30, but plan to submit it, at noon of the day it's due. And that way, if you're having trouble uploading something or you're having technical difficulties, you can call or email the help desk, and they're very good, especially if you call them, at helping you figure out what the problem is. I'm not the technical expert on how to do that, so you should contact the help desk, and the information is here for you. Now let's talk for a minute about field experiences. Most of your classes in the ed school have you going out into the field, into schools for observations or interviews or even to work with students. The state requires 10 fieldwork hours per course. Now we have roughly taken that to mean it's 10 hours total, so you won't be asked to observe 10 hours necessarily in each classroom, but 10 hours total, counting the observation time, the planning time for your paper, the writing time, the submission time. There is a fieldwork assignment in this course. You are not allowed to double dip on hours. So what that means is you can't do one observation for 3 classes and just write it up differently. If I find that you do that, you're either going to fail or you're going to have to redo the observation. And it may be too late in the course to go out and observe another 6 to 8 hours or whatever that you would need to do. So make plans to have a separate and unique observation for this course. As well, you shouldn't self-plagiarize, as I talked about before. Let's talk about policies for the class. I have a fairly lenient makeup and late work policy because I do believe in second chances. Late submissions of most assignments, there are a couple of exceptions, but most assignments will be accepted up to 1 week after the original due date. So let's say an assignment is due on the 1st of November. I'll take it until the November 8th, but I'm going to take a small point penalty, 10%. So maybe if you got 100, you would only get a 90 after it's due. After 1 week, I don't take late assignments. Now, the extra credit vocabulary project will not be accepted later. You can't revise that because of when it's due, and the field work as well. Submission of papers, let's talk about that for a minute. I require Word, Microsoft Word. I don't take papers by hand. I don't take papers emailed to me. It's got to be uploaded through the Blackboard course site. That's because Blackboard has a date and time stamp so that we can both agree on when you submitted it. I don't take PDF papers because they're difficult to edit and give you meaningful feedback. I do a lot of commenting on your papers when I turn it back in using track changes. So you have to have Word for this course. In addition to it being easy for us to communicate through Word, Word is the industry standard. And so if you go into an interview for a job with your principal and you don't know how to use Microsoft Word, that's going to be put you at a little bit of a disadvantage as opposed to candidates who know how to use Word and Excel and PowerPoint and the whole Microsoft, suite. Revision of assignments. So all assignments except for those final 2, which are the field work and the extra credit vocabulary, may be revised and resubmitted. And the way this works is I will always put comments on your papers, and there'll be a little window where I say you can revise and resubmit this, and I'll give you a date. That's always 1 week after it's graded. So this is a great policy because it gives you a chance to think about what you did wrong and to learn from it and to improve your grade. And students have commented very positively on this aspect of the course from previous semesters. So I hope you'll take advantage of it. We have a lot of student learning outcomes. I'm not going to read them all, but these are the things that you should be able to do by the end of the course. Let's talk for a minute about the required textbook. I've emailed you that you can get this from Amazon or through the Mercy bookstore. It's the 7th edition of Classroom Assessment by Macmillan. 2017. This reference here that you see, Macmillan 2017, by the way, is how you put in your papers when you need to cite and reference the textbook. It's also in the syllabus, and I sometimes will say this isn't how you reference the textbook, please go see the syllabus. The little asterisk at the end shouldn't be included in your reference because that's just refers to a note on the syllabus. You don't need the My Learning Lab materials or any other supplemental materials. You can rent the textbook, you can purchase the textbook, you can get an e-version, you may get a hard copy version. Whatever you do, you're going to need it by week 2 because one of the assignments for week 2 is to send me proof of this textbook purchase. Now, why do I think it's important to purchase the textbook? Several reasons. One, I find that students who purchase the textbook do much better in the course. 2, assessment is such a broad topic that I cannot possibly cover all the things you need to know in my brief lectures in this online course. So the readings are important. And so that's why I require that you purchase this or rent this textbook. The grading in the course will add up to 100 points. You can see the assignments here. We're going to go through them a little bit, but I'll go through them in more depth as the course goes on. And then there is a 2-point extra credit assignment that you can earn. So the total possible points in the class is 102. And you can see how each assignment is broken down here. Here's your grading scale. So if your course average comes up to an 87, you can see you're going to get a B+ in the class. So at the end of the course, you can keep track of your total points on Blackboard, but at the end of the course, you can actually see where your average is and see what your letter grade would be. Let's go through the assignments briefly. Again, I'm going to go through these in much more detail as the semester progresses, but this will just give you an overview. Because this is an online class, there's going to be a lot of online work. Each week, I'll post a learning module, and that learning module will be due the following Sunday night by midnight. Each learning module is worth 2 points, and so there are 15 of them. That makes this particular section of the assignments worth 30 points. You might be asked in a learning module to listen to a lecture or view a video. You might be asked to create an assignment. There's usually a discussion board post, and so all of that adds up to the learning modules. Most of the minor assignments in the learning modules may be submitted up to a week late, but not the discussion. As I said in the previous slide, which may have been cut off, you may not submit the discussion board assignment late. And the reason for this is the discussion board takes the place of discussion as it would occur in a regular classroom. So you're saying something to a colleague, your colleague is responding to you, I'm commenting, and so that's our classroom discussion. If you post late, everyone has left the classroom and there's nobody there to hear you. So there's no meaningful discussion going on at that point. Discussion boards are graded with a discussion board rubric, and you can see the 3 items that I look at here. There's going to be a whole separate lecture the first time you're asked to do a discussion board, so I'm not going to go into this in detail, but basically you're going to ask to respond to some questions, and then you're going to be asked to react to a colleague in a meaningful way, not just by saying good job. And I'm going to be looking at how professionally you communicate. Do you have spelling errors, grammatical errors, etc. The second assignment is the EPA Assessment Project. This is a large assignment and it's ongoing. It's worth 30 points. It's going to be broken into 3 parts. This is supposed to teach you something about how the EPA assessment portion of the EPA will function. You're going to have to create a lesson, align it with a standard, and then do some analysis work on some data. Part 1 will be due September 22nd, Part 2 will be due October 27th, and Part 3 will be due November 10th. Much more information will be provided later as the semester goes on. On November 24th, you'll turn in a third project. This is the Performance Assessment Project. Basically, you're going to design a rubric to assess a performance task, and that's worth 15% of your grade. And you can see here, in most of the assignments, the rubrics for how I will score your project are embedded in the syllabus. Finally, your fieldwork paper, which is worth 25% of your grade. It's based on 10 hours of field work, but again, that includes planning, observation, preparation, etc. This is due December 8th. It consists of a 5 to 6 hour observation in a classroom. Again, you can't use these hours in another class, and you can't use another class's hours for this observation. Has to be in a certification area that you're getting, so you can't, if you're early childhood, you can't observe in a high school. If you're social studies, you can't observe in a science classroom, for example. There's a permission to observe form, a letter by the dean that's going up on the course site. This is for you to give to a principal or a teacher that basically verifies that you're there for a professional commitment. It doesn't need to be returned to us. That's just for your benefit. And I'll go into more detail of that assignment as the semester progresses. Your vocabulary project, which is worth up to 2 points extra credit, and it's optional. It's due December 15th. If you look in the timetable, which we're going to see in a minute, of the syllabus, you'll see the vocabulary words for the week. There's a template on the course site in a folder called the assignments folder. And basically the assignments folder contains everything that you need to do to do the major assignments. So all the assignments I've been talking about, all of the rubrics and instructions and submission templates are in the assignments folder. And if you go to the assignments folder, extra credit vocabulary project, you'll see the template for this. Basically, you take the week's vocabulary words, you define them, and you put them in a sentence. You submit the whole thing, all of the chapters, at the end by December 15th. This is worth up to 2 points, which doesn't sound like a lot, but on an overall grade, it is a lot. It can make a difference if you're close. Let's say you're between an A and a B, and you do this and it bumps it up, you might bump it up to an A. Here's the course timetable. So each week you can look in the syllabus and see what's due. This is week 1. So the first module is due on September 8th, Sunday. You can see what the topic is, introduction to the course and assessment. You can see there's our vocabulary. I even put the page number in the book where the definition is, and most of these are also in the glossary in the back of the book. And you can see that the assignments for learning module 1 are due. You can see that there's no readings this week, but next week we're going to be reading from Macmillan chapter 2 in your text, and so you'll definitely want the book by next week. So for this week, make sure you've completed all the activities in the README file from week 1. There's a checklist at the bottom of the file, and this is due Sunday, September 8th. Most of you have probably made your way to the README file by now, but if somehow you stumbled on this recording and you haven't found it, it's in the week 1 learning module folder that's on the course materials site. So let's look at that checklist on the README file. At the end of each README file, so what happens is you go in when the module is posted, you open the week's folder, you see the README file at the top, you open the README file, you read through the assignments. At the bottom of the README file, there's a checklist. And basically the checklist was for you to check to see that you've done at the end all the assignments. So the checklist for this first week says, click on the Welcome Start here and read through the information. There's a getting started attachment, a file that tells you how to get started in the course. I've posted a short introductory video. You may have already seen that in the getting in the Welcome Start Here section. You should have posted an introductory message and attached a photo or video of yourself. You should have opened the Week 1 folder on the course materials page and looked at the README file, which this is in. View the About the Course lecture, which you're doing now, and there's a quiz, the About the Course quiz. I think that's worth half a point. View the lecture, The Basics of Assessment, and then there's a 1-point assignment called the Types of Assessment, and do that after you do all the others, so because you can't really do that assignment till you've viewed the lecture and uploaded it to the link. If you've done all of these things, you've completed Week 1 module activities. Now you can see this takes a while. It can't be done, like you can't start it at 10 or 11 o'clock on a Sunday night before it's due and get through it. So what I always say to students is try to start early in the week, open the README file, look through it, start on the activities, work on it as you have time, and you should have no trouble completing it by the end of the week. As the course gets going more, I may post modules in advance. I know some people do like to work ahead, and that's okay. Just remember, if you do work ahead, you should be coming back to participate in the discussion board around the dates that they are due. So that's it. And if you have any questions, again, please do email me. I'd much rather correspond with students through email ahead of if they have confusion or problems. Some students are afraid to reach out to the professor because they are afraid of looking stupid, and I don't view it that way. I really view it as it's better to clear up any misconception, no matter how small the question you think is, or how large it is, or how difficult the problem is, than have a problem go on, and it might be weeks and weeks, or even towards the end of the course, and there's no way to correct it. So everybody have a good first week. Hope you enjoy this part of the course, and I'll speak with you again next week.